The music of the Kasambwe brothers of Malawi. Music and dance are vital to the culture of African people. They cover all the vicissitudes of life, from morning to night, and birth and death. We celebrate with music and dance in time of joy and sorrow. The whole universe revolves in rhythms. Everything and every human action revolves in rhythm. The late Babatunde Olatunji of Nigeria once said, quote, "We speak with rhythm, we walk in rhythm, and if we don't have the rhythm, we become awkward." My guest is from Malawi. He is a storyteller and a dancer, a healer, and educator. His name is Masanko Banda. Masanko, did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, you did, Emmanuel. That is my name.
Masanko Banda is from Malawi. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's really wonderful to be here.
Before we talk about the work that you do, let's talk about a little bit about your country. Educate the listeners about this African nation.
Malawi is a small country. Not many people know about it. We were called Nyasaland because when we were under the British as a colonial power. And when we got our independence in 1964, we became Malawi. And we have been independent since then. It's a small country with 10 million people, surrounded by Mozambique, Zambia, and Tanzania to the north. Our main features are our geography and our land. Malawi is a beautiful country with many natural resources. We have a beautiful lake, the 12th highest mountain in the world, lots of rivers, lots of hiking, lots of animals, elephants, crocodiles, lions, leopards. And the people of Malawi, we are in our tourism documents, we are called the warm heart of Africa.
The warm heart of Africa.
That's right,
okay.
Because the people of Malawi are very hospitable and like to welcome visitors.
So what are the different ethnic groups there?
Malawi has 9 different ethnic groups, the Chewa, the Tonga, the Yao, the Tumbuka, the Nkonde, the Sena, and about 4 others. So we are 9 ethnic groups. The Chewa are the largest, and so the main language of Malawi is called Chichewa, which is spoken by the whole country.
Okay, it's the official language.
That is the official language alongside English. Most business is conducted in English because we are a British colony, but the national language that everybody in the country speaks is Chichewa.
In Africa, many names have significance. What does your name mean?
My name means to choose. I was born in 1962 on the first anniversary of the first elections that Malawians were allowed to participate in. So because I was born on that very important anniversary, I was given the name Masanko, which means to choose. My middle name, Kamsisi, means small roots. And so again, the significance there is that we were beginning in small steps to move towards freedom. So Masanko Kamsisi means choosing freedom in small steps.
I see. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as I was reading your bio, an introduction about you say that you danced all the time, even when you was not supposed to dance. Your feet moved.
That's right.
And then it's continued to say that when you danced, you was happy and your entire view of the world was transformed.
Yes.
Explain what is it?
Well, you know, it is sometimes followed as a cliche that African people dance all the time. But I don't think it is a cliche. We mark the passage of time with dance. We dance when we want it to rain. We dance when the sun is shining. We dance when we bring in the harvest. So for me as a child, I knew from very early on that there was something that was significant about dancing. Because I noticed how we would dance when we were celebrating. But I also noticed that we would dance when we were sad, when somebody had passed on. We would celebrate their life with dance. So when I say that my worldview changed, what dance meant for me was an understanding of being able to see life in its fullest manifestation through dance movement. When people would come together and celebrate with dance, their mood would change. And in Malawi's view, our struggle for independence and our struggle for self-determination was carried forward through dance. So my worldview, even as a child, I was able to see that dance had this power and this impact on people around me and on me on my own life.
So, with that, let me ask you this: at what age that you got involved or you learned dance and playing the drums, and who was the person who really influenced you?
Well, my grandmother. My grandmother was very influential in my life. My grandmother lived in the village, we lived in the town, so she would come and visit us. And it was very important for her, for us children, to know the ways of the people of the village, the stories, the healing, the dance. And when I was 5 years old, she said to me one day, she said, "Masanko, I want you to know that your job in the world will be to bring joy and healing through music, dance, and stories." So I was given my job when I was 5 years old. Now, as a 5-year-old kid, it was like, yeah, grandma, whatever. But as I grew older, I began to see the significance. I began to see that when I danced, people around me were happy. When I danced, the elders would stop and observe. And so I think I was a teenager when I went to a festival. And I remember that afternoon watching the people at the festival more than I watched what was happening on stage. And I said to myself that afternoon, I want to make people feel like this. I want to make people feel happy. I want to make people feel like they are in a community that they can express themselves. And so from then on, I began to become more focused in studying dance and studying the intricacies of dance, studying dance as a healing art, studying dance as a way to bring people together, studying dance as a way to bring people to peace. And as I became a young adult, I focused more and I learned from the elders in my country. As I came to the United States, I started taking classes from different teachers across the country who were teaching African dance, like Babatunde Olatunji, who you just mentioned, and other dance teachers across the country, to learn more about the intricacies of this art so that I could share it with others.
So one can say that you are rightly fulfilling your destiny.
Yes. I am living the destiny that is embodied in my name, Masanko Kamsisi, choosing small beginnings for freedom, choosing small beginnings for peace, but at the same time continuing a legacy. My grandmother was a prolific storyteller. Our people told stories. So I am continuing that legacy by passing on stories to the younger generation, but also by telling the world about Africa. Because many people in the world don't know much about our country. They hear the news about hunger and civil wars and the Darfur and the Congo. 80% of Africa, there's no war. 80% of Africa is vibrant. People go to work, people dance, people sing. And I want to introduce people to that side of the Africa that I know, the Africa that I grew up in.
Did you ever imagine that you will be fulfilling your destiny here in America?
When I've started taking people to my country, and when I was sitting down with my aunt, she observed to me, she said, "Masanko, even though we gave you this name, and even though we taught you these things, we had no idea that you would continue and you would take it upon yourself, this mantle of being an ambassador of your people and telling the world about Malawi, telling the world about Africa." So, yes, I am surprised, but at the same time I know that it is my destiny, and it is a wonderful surprise of going, oh yes, I didn't just come to the West and just say, oh, forget about Africa, I'm here in the West now and I'm going to live this wonderful life. I stayed close to my roots of wanting to share my life, wanting to expose Africa to people, and especially wanting to expose Africa to children, so that as children grow up in schools and in churches, they can understand us as a full people, expressing ourselves and living life fully in peace, and wanting to show the rest of the world how we live, and understanding that when we show the world how we live and the world shows us how we live, that is how we can truly create a world at peace.
So life as a youth in Malawi was wonderful. Then when you were teenagers, in your teenager years, something happened. Your father, who was politically involved in the affair of the country, was arrested. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Malawi, like most of the African countries, had got their independence in the 50s and 60s. When our president came into power, he very quickly decided that the only way that the country could develop was by ruling as a dictator. And so in 1971, he threw out the constitution, declared himself president for life, and from then on, everybody in the government had to follow anything that the president said.
Was it Kamuzu Banda?
Dr. Kamuzu Banda, yes, who was our savior. He saved us from the British, but as they say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, my father in the government, he decided to say, no, I know why we fought for freedom for the Malawian people. And like most constitutions, the Constitution of Malawi says, we the people for the people. So my father, in trying to fulfill that, when the president would put forward policies that were not good for the country or detrimental to the people of the country, my father would speak out. And after about 15 years of my father speaking out, the president in 1980 finally decided, I'm going to put you in jail, I'm going to lock you up, and no trial, no charges. The police just came, picked up my father, and put him in jail, and he languished there for 12 years.
Okay. We're going to come back with Masanko Banda right after this song here from Malawi. KKUP. Hello? Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Who? Whose number? Oh, Steve Aldrin? Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, there you go. Are you there, Steve? Are you there, Steve? I mean, Dave. Okay. Okay. I have a home number which is 654 965 4344. That's the only number I have. I don't have a work number for you. That's it. Okay, Dave. Bye-bye. So this this variety of languages how are they dispersed around the country? The majority of the Shiwa, what part of the country is
they're in the central part of the country.
In the central part?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lilongwe, Kasungu, Chinji, Yowa, Chewa. And then Tumbuka, Tonga, Chinkonde are in the north.
In the north part.
And then Yao, Lomwe, Sena are in the south.
Yeah. And we are back with the program. This is the Coast of Africa on 91.5. This is KKUP. My name is Emmanuel Nado. And my guest is from Malawi, Masango Banda. He's a storyteller, dancer, healer, educator, and an interplay leader. He's our guest this afternoon here on Echoes of Africa. Masango, earlier before we left and listened to this music from Malawi, you were talking about your dad who was arrested and he was in jail for 12 years. That forced you to leave the country.
That's right.
When he was in prison. So when did you leave home and where did you go first?
In 1987, 7 years into his incarceration, I was finally able to leave. And when I left Malawi, because of the gap between getting my passport and getting a visa to come to the United States, I first went to Zambia. Because as soon as I got my passport, I could no longer stay in the country. I had to leave. And I stayed in Zambia for a month, and then I came to Ohio. And I went to Worcester, Ohio, where I went to a small liberal arts college called the College of Worcester, where I got my BA in dance and theater with a minor in dance, which leaving home, everybody thought Masango was going to the United States, is going to get his degree in economics or law. But I came and I said, no, I have to follow, my calling.
Your destiny.
My destiny. So I got my degree in theater with a minor in dance. Then I moved to North Carolina, and for a year worked helping adults learn how to read and write in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama. And it was while I was there that I decided to come to California because I wanted to study the intersection of dance, the spiritual arts, and spirituality. So I went to Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley to get my Master's of Divinity. But as I studied there, I decided, no, I didn't quite want to get a Master of Divinity degree. And I ended up with a Master's in Creation Spirituality from the Sophia Center at Holy Names University in Oakland.
Okay, storytelling, drumming, interplay. These are all some of your specialties. Let's talk about the work that you do. Now, was storytelling around you all the time while growing up in Malawi, and who was telling you the stories?
You know, I tell kids when I go to schools that I didn't see television until I was 25. In fact, my first television show I saw when I came here to the United States. My grandmother was my primary storyteller. Mom and dad, but dad was busy working. Mom would tell us stories whenever she could, aunts and uncles. There was always somebody who was saying, Masango, come, let me tell you a story. Masango, come, let me tell you a story. So I grew up with stories, ancient stories, modern stories, stories from Malawi, stories from Zimbabwe, stories from Ghana, stories from Egypt, all over the continent. And of course, I went to school with kids from America, from Canada, from Japan, from Korea. So I was being exposed to international stories, but also to our own cultural stories. So yes, I grew up with stories as I was growing up as a child. As I became a young adult, there were always stories around me.
So what is storytelling, and how does one become a good storyteller? Are there any particular techniques?
Yes, I mean, storytelling, the essential part of storytelling is understanding your body. When you are telling a story, your task is to bring your audience into the characters that you are unfolding. So description, describing trees. What do the leaves look like? What is the day like? If a child is running, how is the child running? If a lion is jumping out of the bush, what sound does the lion make? So to be a good storyteller means to have full control of your voice, to have full control of your body, and in a sense, to not be afraid to look silly, to not be afraid to make a funny face, to not be afraid to fall onto your back and kick your legs in the air. To be a good storyteller means to know your material, one, but two, to also be in full possession of all of the tools that you have as a human being. If you're a drummer, you can use the drum. If you're a guitarist, you can use the guitar. If you're a singer, you can sing. As you're telling a story, you can break into song.
So you're an actor.
Yes, yes. And so, I mean, it definitely helped that I got my BA in acting, because that put me more in control with using my body and using my hands and using space.
In West Africa,
Yes.
we have people that they call the griot.
Griot.
They are oral historians,
Yes. hereditary
hereditary musicians whose role is to sing the praises
That's
of
right.
the leaders and the family, you know. It is a skill which is passed on from generation to generation.
Yes.
It's not something that you learn. One must come from a griot ancestry in order to
Right.
become a real griot. I was wondering whether, in which way could we associate storytelling with the type of material that the griot do?
Well, you know, as I've been saying, for me, what I'm trying to do is to pass on the lessons of my people. The people who would tell me stories would say, Masanku, this is where you come from. The Tonga came from here, they went to Zimbabwe here, they came from South Africa here. So in a sense, what I am trying to do with my stories is to situate us in the larger cosmology of the world. And so as a storyteller, I am passing on. You know, kids always ask me, Masanku, is that story true? Masanku, is that story true? And what I tell the kids is what my grandmother used to tell me. The story is as true as we want it to be. Because we don't know where these stories originated. But we just know that, exactly, we just know that somewhere in our past there were heroes. We know that somewhere in our past there were scoundrels. We know that somewhere in our past there were people who liked to sing, who liked to dance. And so we bring all of these characters together as a way of continuing, in a sense, the human story.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know, in many African indigenous languages, there are words which meaning is so powerful that there is no natural translation in Western language, especially when you're doing storytelling.
Right.
In this case, what do you do? It must be a challenge, isn't it?
It is. You know, one of the things that I've always thought of is I want to learn Persian because I want to read Rumi in Persian, because I'm sure there is something that is lost when you go from Persian to English. And in the same way, you know, many people ask me, Masanku, do you think in English? And no, I think I still, even after 20 years, still think in Chichewa. And there are some terms where to translate, sometimes one word, I would have to say a whole sentence to be able to translate it. But as a storyteller, because I use my whole body, I can bring that skill and that tactic to explain. But sometimes I just wish, oh, I wish you understood Chichewa, because there's only one way that I can say the word in Tano, or there's only one way I can say the word kusangalala. You know, kusangalala, yes, it's joy, but there's something about the word kusangalala which means to be happy from the inside. You know, it's not just kukondwa. Kukondwa is joy. Kusangalala means to be happy from the inside. And English doesn't have a word that means happy from the inside. So there are just some of these things that are very difficult to translate in the moment. But as a storyteller, I try to use all the tools that I have to be able to say, okay, this is how I'm going to convey this sentiment, this thought, this feeling, this location, this particular situation.
Do you use a different method when you're performing for children or adults, even though the story may be the same?
You know, I have found that, yes, there are times, well, let me say this. I think the major difference is if I go to a school and I tell stories to kindergarten and then I tell stories to 8th graders, they all make a big difference. But sometimes telling stories to kindergartens and telling stories to adults, I might tell it the same way. Because I think in all of us adults, there is that bit of our childhood that we want to hang on to, or that we don't get to express, that we can vicariously live out through other characters. I've always thought that Jim Carrey's success, or even somebody like Bill Cosby, is because their type of humor allows us as adults to be children again. So yes, sometimes I tell the stories in different ways to different populations, but most times I don't have to do too many changes, because people, you know, want to see a funny face whether you're 80 or 8. You want to see somebody make a funny face.
Yeah. So do you have a story for us? Can you do a story for us?
Yes, I do have a story for you.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, in a land somewhere on the coast of Africa there lived a young girl. Her name was Patience, and her village was next to the ocean. This village could have been in Kenya, could have been in Tanzania, could have been in Mozambique, could have been in Ethiopia or Somalia, could have been in Mauritania or Namibia. These are all coastal African countries. Patience was 9 years old, and like most 9-year-old girls, Patience loved to play with her friends. If she wasn't helping her mother in the kitchen or doing homework or at school, she could be found playing jump rope with her friends, or playing hopscotch, which is a very popular sport amongst the children in Africa. Patience just was full of life. But there was one thing that Patience loved to do that all the other girls didn't. And that is, every now and then, Patience would go down to the ocean and she would watch the waves go out and come back. She would watch the waves go out and come back. Whoosh, whoosh. This brought Patience so much joy. It was her moment to be by herself. When she was down by the ocean, she would look out across the waters and imagine other lands that she had only heard about but had never seen. China, Russia, America. And she would imagine to herself, I wonder what children are doing in these other countries. How do the girls play in America? How do the girls play in England? And then every now and then a ship would go by. And Patience would imagine herself going on adventures to different countries. And then she would go back to her friends and she would play. On a beautiful sunny day like this, they might sing, Zua iware, tisewere timbe, Zua iware, tisewere timbe, let the sun shine, so we can play, we can sing, let the sun shine, so we can play, we can sing. Now, Patience usually went to the ocean about 2 or 3 times a week, always in the morning. One day, the girls woke up, it was a beautiful day, and the girls decided they were going to have a girls' day out. They were too young to have a girls' night out, so they were going to have a girls' day out. They were going to go deep into the African forest and just play by themselves. No boys, ew. No parents, boring, just the girls by themselves. They had this special place in the forest where the mud was different colors, red, green, blue, and they would put on makeup and they would have their own fashion shows just by themselves. But this was also a day when Patience usually went to the ocean. She completely forgot. She was having so much fun. But in the middle of the afternoon, she decided, I'm going to go down to the ocean. So she ran down to the ocean, and when she got there, she stopped. Trapped on the sand were starfish. The tide had gone out, and the starfish were there on the sand, and they were slowly baking in the sun. She thought to herself, oh, what am I going to do? Look at all of these starfish. I am just one little girl. She looked to the left, she looked to the right, the starfish were there. Then she started picking them up and throwing them back in the water. As she was doing this, she heard the voice, hey, little girl! And she stopped. Walking up was a man who was very angry. What do you think you're doing? She said. Don't, me, said the man. But, don't, but me, said the man. By this time, he was right next to her. Somehow, Patience managed to get out. I am trying to save the starfish. And the man said, you can't save the starfish. You are just one little girl and there are thousands of starfish. Why don't you just let them die? Don't you know that children should be seen and not heard? I am here taking my afternoon walk and here you are making a commotion. Go play with your friends. There is nothing you can do here. You can't make any difference. Go play with your friends and leave me in peace. Somehow, she managed to say, picking one up and throwing it in the ocean, I made a difference for that one. The man grunted. Then she picked up another one and threw it in the ocean and said, I made a difference for that one too. And then out of the corner of her eye, she saw the man start picking up starfish and throwing them in the ocean. And soon the two of them were throwing starfish back into the ocean as quickly as they could. Meanwhile, back at the village, the people were worried, where's our little girl? And all the people from the village came down to the ocean and found the two of them throwing starfish back as quickly as they could. And of course, all the people from the village joined in and started throwing starfish back into the ocean. And in no time at all, they had saved most of the starfish, proving once again that it only takes one person to begin, and everybody else will follow when the deed is good. As they went back to the village, they sang, Zikomo, patience, Zikomo, Zikomo, patience, Zikomo. Thank you to patience, thank you to patience. And from then on, Patience was known as the hero that saved the starfish.
It is 3 minutes after the hour of 4, and we're tuned to Echoes of Africa on KKUP 91.5 FM, listener-sponsored radio for the South Bay and part of the Bay Area. My guest is from Malawi. You just heard him, and a beautiful story, man.
Thank you.
It is, too bad we're not live on the TV or something, but you put everything that you just described into the movement, the body languages, and the voice. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Let's talk about drumming. When did you learn to play the drum? Was it an inner thing?
It's a very interesting question. All my life, I've heard stories, and as soon as I was a teenager or young adult, started telling stories. All my life I have danced, but it wasn't until 6 years ago or 7 years ago that I finally said, I have all of these rhythms in my head, but I've never played the drum. And I ran into one of Babatunde Olatunji's students, and her name escapes my mind right now. She's here actually on the peninsula, and I will remember it in a minute. But she was teaching drum classes. And I decided I want to learn. And for me, I wanted to learn because I know that it's always about getting the technique. I can hear the rhythms in my head, but if I don't have the technique, it is very difficult to play them. So then I began learning the system that has been taught by Babatunde Olatunji to all of his students. And so it's just been 7 years that I picked up the drum, and now I've learned rhythms from West Africa like kuku and kakilambe and all of the rhythms, but also just the rhythms that I grew up with as a child. Growing up in Malawi, the rhythms that I would hear as the women dance and as the men dance, or the men dance with the women. And then coming to the United States, rhythms from rhythm and blues and from jazz and from gospel. So I've got all of these musical influences, and of course, the music of Brazil, cumbia and salsa. So I've got all of these rhythms. My preferred instrument is the djembe. I play the djembe, I play congas, I play bongos, but the djembe is my preferred instrument. So it's just been 5 years.
Very
I
good.
consider myself a beginner.
Yeah,
really.
Well, I know even though you learn to play the drum in here in the United States, I'm quite sure in Malawi there are many, there are various type of drums.
Oh, yes. Ngoma is the main type of drum. But we also have djembe is played, even though not as prolifically as here. But kenken, the cowbell, is also played in Malawi. Talking drum, tama, is also played in Malawi. But in ngoma, the round cylindrical that goes straight down is the main drum that is played in Malawi.
So it is similar to the drum in the Congo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now you teach drumming as well?
Yes, mostly to kids in the school.
To the kids?
Yes.
How do you teach the different drumming patterns? Because there are many of these patterns.
Well, what I do is I start from the foundation, Babatunde's foundation, because that's the way I was taught. Gungodo, 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 godo, go. gungodogodogo. So teaching them the foundation about how to use the hands on the drum and building up from basic to gungodogodogo, ba, all the way through those 6 rhythms. And then from there, all of the rhythms that I know in my head, I know what the breakdown is. So I can say to these kids, okay, you guys play this pattern, and I'll say to these kids, you guys play this pattern, and if there's a bell pattern, I'll give the bell to some kids so they can play, and then have them switch around so that they learn all of the patterns, and also have the kids hear each individual pattern by itself, and then hear the 3 patterns together so they can understand. And I use drumming as a way to teach children about living in community. Living community works when all people's voices come together and not any one voice is dominant over the others. When the voices blend and when there's harmony, the village works well, the country works well, the world works well. So I teach those principles when I'm teaching children drumming.
Okay, let's listen to this piece of drum while you're setting up to play something for us here.
Okay.
Okay. This one is Ghana, by the way.
Ghana?
You know it?
No, I don't.
It's from Ghana. It's very, very popular in the United States. This boy here is a white guy that was born in Malawi. His name is Tony Bird.
Tony Bird, okay.
Yeah. I think I was asking him that. Yeah. See, here's the information about him if you read in the back here.
Yeah. The person I was trying to remember, she teaches at Palo Alto. What's her name?
Is she white American?
White American. She knows Jennifer Algrim
and she
does Saketina now.
Yeah, she used to publish this village drum beat, heartbeat or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, I know of her. Yeah. She listens to this program a lot.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard from her for a long time.
What's her name?
Yeah. I forgot her name. She came to the station one day, many years ago.
Yeah.
When Babatunde came over.
Right. Zorina Wolf.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay, let's go.
Okay.
My guest, Masango Kamsisi Banda. Oh, he's really an ambassador of African, many arts from the continent of Africa, even though he's from Malawi. Okay, so we were speaking about drumming, and you brought your drum along. So
yes, I did.
Okay, see what you're going to play.
Yes, and before I play, though, I just want to give respect where respect is due. Zorina Wolf was the teacher that I was trying to remember. She teaches here on the peninsula. And she was taught by Babatunde Olatunji, and she is the one that taught me, because we believe in Africa to give proper credit where it is due. So I'm just going to play a very simple rhythm with a song of welcome. And if I was teaching kids, I would play this for them, and then I would break it down. So the rhythm goes like this. And then somebody would play the high part. Component parts. Now when I play them, I play all three. But if I had drummers playing with me, each drummer would have different parts to play. That would make the sound richer, and then it would sound like that means I see you, I see you.
Okay, go ahead, Masang.
Translated, that means I see you, hello. In Africa, in Malawi, and I know in many other African countries, when we greet each other, the first thing we say is not hello or how are you. The first thing we say is I see you, because we believe it is important for the other person to know that they have been seen before you greet them and say hello, and then they acknowledge that they see you also.
Socially, Masanka,
yes,
you have accomplished a great deal of social work. And before we get into that and talk about You Can Dance,
yes,
the organization you founded to bring your passion for dance and storytelling to the community all around the world, when did you give life to You Can Dance? When?
Well, You Can Dance, I thought about it about 15 years ago. As soon as I moved to California and I started going to graduate school, I would get asked to come to school to talk about Malawi or to talk about Africa or to talk about peace. And then as I was sharing dance, in particular dance, a lot of people would come up to me and say, I can't dance. And of course, we know in Africa, you know, there's a saying, if you can walk, you can dance. If you can talk, you can sing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, if I'm going to start an organization that is going to be the way people find me, the name is going to be You Can Dance African Healing Arts. Because I believe everybody can dance, even if it just means shaking your head or shaking a leg. I have danced with people in wheelchairs. I've danced even with a person who only could move his eyes. He was in a wheelchair, paralyzed all the way. All he could move was his eyes, and we danced together. So I believe that everybody can dance, and so that was the impetus for me 15 years ago, to create an organization that anybody could find and anybody could say, yes, I can dance. Yes, I can dance even though maybe I've never danced before, or I feel like I have two left legs. I can get out there when the music is playing, I can shake my body, and that can make me feel good.
Give us the website and the spelling of You Can Dance, because it's not written
right.
Okay.
A lot of people say you can dunk. It is actually UCANDANC.org. So it's You Can Dance, the letter U, can, dance without an E.org. UCANDANC.org. So it's You Can Dance without the letter E.org. That's my website.
Okay, so you are on a board of directors of an organization called Pathway.
That's right.
What is this organization and what does it do?
Pathways to Peace is a very small non-profit organization based in Larkspur, California, which was founded by Ava and Madison 25 years ago. And its primary purpose is to help small communities, large communities around the world find pathways to peace. It's a non-profit organization that works together with the United Nations and other peace organizations around the world to foster peace in all all its different manifestations, to foster peace in business, to foster peace in education, to foster peace in just in society. And so Pathways to Peace's primary focus is to consult with peace organizations in India, Africa, South America, and to say, how can we live in peace? And it is the primary organization behind the United Nations sanctioned International Day of Peace, which is held every 21st of September every year, sanctioned by the UN as a day where everybody in the world can come together and observe a day of peace, regardless of what is happening in that country or in that area.
So where is Pathways? Where are they located?
Pathways to Peace is located in Green Bay, Larkspur, California.
Oh, Larkspur, California.
Yes, Larkspur, California.
Okay. You also teach something you call interplay.
Right.
What is it?
Interplay is a way for people to discover their own story, their own dance, and their own song. It's an improvisational method that is taught. It was founded by Cynthia Winton Henry and Phil Porter from Oakland. It has been around now for 20 years. It's in 50 cities around the world. Their website is www.interplay.org. And what has been interesting for me with Interplay is that it's this improvisational form which allows people to find their story, their song, their dance, and express it improvisationally. And now it's in 50 cities across the United States. It's also in Australia, in Germany, in England, and in Thailand. And it allows for community building. It's a vehicle for coming to peace. And it's a vehicle for allowing people to find their own self-expression. And so Interplay leaders are trained primarily by Phil and Cynthia, but there's about 20 to 30 of us that have been trained around the world now as Interplay leaders. We do retreats. Interplay now is happening in prisons, is happening in schools, is happening in rehab centers as a tool to allow people to really get their story out and to find their most easiest way of expressing their dreams and desires.
Your father was freed in 1992.
That's right.
And he helped bring the new democracy in your country.
That is correct.
So how did you give us a background of his release?
Yes, well, as soon as my father was released from prison in 1992, he, together with some of his friends, immediately began to say, what can we do to change the course of our country? Malawi by then was economic going down, everything, food security was going down. But it also happened at the time, of course, as you know, of the Berlin Wall falling. The Berlin Wall had just fallen. Africa was no longer the political football between East and West. And so a lot of political prisoners across the continent were released, but also in Malawi. And what happened?
In the same period that Mandela.
Exactly, Mandela was in 89.
89.
Mandela was released in 89. And so, you know, that began to change around about that time. And so what happened in Malawi is that in 1993, the Malawi government was finally forced to call a referendum to say to the Malawian people, do you want to go back to your original constitution that allows for multi-party government and that allows for multi-party democracy? 90% of the voting population turned out, and 70% voted overwhelmingly to go back to the constitution that was suspended by the president in 1971. And then in 1994, we had our first multi-party elections in which the United Democratic Front won more seats in parliament, and the presidential candidate, Bakili Muluzi, became president of Malawi. My father was in that government as the second vice president, and then he took on various ministerial portfolios. And to date, we have had 3 successful election cycles where, you know, in fact, we've even had a change of government where Muluzi was termed out, and now there's a new president, Bingu Mutharika, is in power. We're having elections next year. So it's been a remarkable success story, not only politically, but economically, in that Malawi now is well on the way to solid food security. The inflation has gone down. The kwacha against the dollar is strong, and Malawians are very happy.
Very good.
Yeah.
You say that your grandmother
Yes.
is happy as you are fulfilling the vision that she had for you. What is the barometers you use to measure this fulfillment? I mean, I know already by reading your bio, but
Right.
For the audience, the listeners.
Right. Well, I mean, for example, in all of us, we do our work, and we don't do it necessarily to get the pat on the back. We do it for our own individual fulfillment. But I was very fortunate that in 2001, I was one of 50 people selected by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to receive the Unsung Hero of Compassion Award. The Dalai Lama wanted to award people who were taking their passion, their creativity, and using it to make change in the world. And I know that if my grandmother was alive today, she would, in fact, all my grandparents, my grandmother on my father's side, on my mother's side, my grandmother, my grandfather on my father's side who I knew, and even my grandfather who I never met because he passed on before I was born. All four of them I know that are very happy to know that I represent Malawi so well. And in actual fact, as I've said, I've been taking people to Malawi to learn about Malawi. And my aunt and my father and my mother at various times said, we are so happy to know that you are fulfilling and you are being such an incredible ambassador for us by bringing your friends who are doctors, lawyers, professors, artists, musicians to come and see how we live here in Malawi. So those are all indicators, and I am doing this and I'm able to feed myself and I'm able to pay the rent and do all of the things that we're expected to do in society. And I think the sum total of all of that makes my people very happy.
It must have been a tremendous honor to receive that Unsung Hero award from Dalai Lama. And where was it? Was it in San Francisco?
It was in San Jose, actually.
San Jose.
It was at the Fairmont Hotel in San Jose. It was May 2001. All 50 of us, well, of the 50 that were awarded, I think 42 people made it to the actual ceremony. And we were each awarded a certificate, the bead that the Dalai Lama puts across your neck, and given a personal thank you from the Dalai Lama for the work that we were doing in the world. And it was amazing because it's always nice to get a thank you.
Yeah.
From wherever it comes, whether it's a first grader saying, thank you for coming to my school and telling us stories, or the Dalai Lama saying, thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. All of that is very satisfying.
So, speaking of coming to your school, now where do you teach now? You teach a little bit everywhere?
I teach at different schools. St. Joseph's Elementary School in Palo Alto, in Menlo Park. I teach at an elementary school in Cupertino, one of the public schools down in Cupertino. St. Andrew's Episcopal School, also in Saratoga. Piedmont Elementary School in Piedmont, Oakland. Beach Elementary School in Piedmont, Oakland. So anywhere teachers call me and say, come tell us, so all over the Bay Area. In San Francisco, I've taught at about 4 schools in San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, Walnut Creek, Orinda. Teachers find my website and they say, come and sing to our students,
yeah.
Come and tell stories to our students all over the Bay Area.
So your occasional trip to Malawi, when do you go over there with?
Right now, I've got 2 trips that are happening every year. One is in August, the end of July to middle of August, and one is just after Christmas. People will leave here on the 27th of December until the 10th of January. So those are 2 trips that I'll be doing every year to Malawi. But in addition to that, I also do retreats in Mexico, in Hawaii. This year I'm doing a retreat in Bali, Indonesia, and in Australia, and in New Zealand. And all that information is on my website.
Okay, give us the website again.
YouCanDance.org. YouCanDanc.org. Or if you just Google my name, Masanko, the website will come up. MASANKHO.
Okay, before we say thanks to you, give us your last word in terms of what is your message to people in the Bay Area?
I want to say to people, reach out. One of the things that I was taught by everybody who taught me is you can never say thank you. You can never reach out enough to other people. You know, we get so caught up in work, we get so caught up in, you know, getting things. But at the end of the day, it's about the people in our lives. What storytelling, African dance, interplay, doing piecework has allowed me the privilege and honor is of being with people. So I just want to say to people, find somebody to dance with. Find somebody to tell you a story, or tell somebody, tell children stories. Travel. Not with me per se, but travel. Go to Mexico, even if it's just going across the border to Mexico. Go to another country. Sing with people in another country. Share food with people in another country. Drum and dance with people in another country. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to you for giving me this space on your program. I feel very honored to be here. And I want to say thank you to all my teachers and all the people who work with me and continue to say, Masanko, come sing with us. Come dance with us. I want to say Zikomo. Zikomo, 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 Zikomo Kwambiri, which is thank you very much.
Masanko Kamsisi Banda. It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Very good.
Yay.